Asking people to rewrite everything that they do and come to us and changes, like it doesn't make sense.
What was it that turned you on to FHE? You said you were maybe a disbeliever 3 to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
What flipped?
And I'll let you in on a little secret. I think
Welcome back to the Rollup, your home for technical talks and open conversations that shape the modular future. Nothing on today's show is to be construed as financial advice. You can see our full disclosures list at therollup.co/ventures. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode after a quick word from some of our awesome partners.
Redstone is DeFi's modular oracle, supporting over 100 clients on over 50 chains and offering 1,000 assets. Redstone is the leader for Bitcoin staking and yield-bearing assets. They offer the most robust, customizable price feeds available in any model. Join the Redstone exhibition today.
Guy, welcome to Bangkok.
thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We're at Arbiverse and having a lot of fun. I think time and time again we've heard this concept of the casino funding the research lab, and I think that is particularly true after we've seen a couple of green candles. The vibes are up. The casino is working as intended, but there's a lot of energy being put into the tech and the research that is enabling this entire ecosystem. I want to talk about FHE and get into some of that. Generally, how are you thinking about cryptography? Because meme coins and DeFi and yield farming gets a lot of the flashy lights.
Yeah.
But that's really not why this industry is going to survive the next 5, 10, 20, 50 years.
I mean, this might be a somewhat unpopular take from someone more on the research side, but I've been in crypto for really long, like since 2013. And I totally agree with you that the casino funds the research lab. And I kind of started from that, like ignoring the casino and just being on the research side. But then over time, I kind of fell in love with the casino and with everything. Like, I feel like, this is almost like the biggest social human experiment that we have going on, like potentially in my lifetime, in our lifetime. And so I see it as like something that's like bi-directional, right? It's like I'm perfectly fine seeing like meme coins take the spotlight. I know that the technology we build will eventually underpin that use case, but also many others, and it's fun. It's like part of the fun and games, as long as no one is getting hurt. I'm good with that. But I think it's all like, there's no way to really cut, and I think that's a realization from the last 3 years or maybe slightly more. There's no way to cut crypto in between where it's like, this is research, this is the casino.
Right.
They feed each other.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of a match made in heaven. I mean, the technology that enables a lot of these primitives has only been possible in the last 2 to 3 years because we've had so much brain power and energy that has gone into this base layer. And so we talk a lot about ZK and programmable cryptographic methods, but I think FHE is one of those things that actually Vitalik called it like this Egyptian god card that is potentially going to like really cause this paradigm shift in the way that we're building and thinking about these systems. And so why do you think FHE doesn't really get the love or like the same credit that ZK does? Is it just because it hasn't been around as long, or why is that?
2 reasons. One is like time.
Yeah.
I mean, it has been around for quite long, like 15 years, give or take, but it did seem like such like moon math, like even more than ZK, that even people like on the cryptography and research side, they were very, very skeptical. Like, you have to understand, people were skeptical of ZK like 10, 15 years ago. People until like 3 to 4 years ago were very, very skeptical of FHE, myself included, by the way. And you're only in the last like few years, you're seeing the transition. So that takes a bit of time. I guess that's the main aspect of it. And the other aspect is that not everyone still knows it. Like, people are still getting familiar with it.
What was it that turned you on to FHE? You said you were maybe a disbeliever 3 to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
What flipped?
So I'm an MPC researcher by training. So I come from MPC, private compute, ZK, all that. I made a mistake. I was one of those. Like when, before even Zcash came out, I was one of those who said, it's too slow, it's maybe gonna be for like one use case, someone's gonna use it. And I was obviously wrong. Like ZK went like this, you know, and and people didn't expect it, myself included. So that was like reason number one. I'm kind of seeing with FHE a similar trajectory as ZK, but just with like a 5 or 7 year delay. The other aspect is that, you know, I thought, I founded also Secret Network before, so I thought TEs are going to be enough. I think TEs are very powerful, but more as a defense in depth. I don't think they're enough on their own. And again, I'm an MPC researcher, so I thought MPC would get us to where FHE will, and we can talk more about it later maybe, but like I've come to believe that FHE, even though today they may be on par, give or take, FHE is gonna like grow and scale much, much faster.
And I think what we're realizing is that like when one technology comes out, it feels so innovative. We feel like it's gonna solve all the problems.
Yeah.
But then as it goes, we realize that MPC is good for one class of problems. ZK is good for another class of problems, and there is no silver bullet. And so my question is, what specific class of problems is FHE good to use? Putting aside ZK and MPC, what is it specifically that, you know, the other programmable cryptographic methods aren't able to do that FHE is?
I mean, FHE allows you to compute over encrypted data.
Yeah.
Like you have a transaction, you know, maybe it's a transaction for a smart contract. That smart contract has like user data. You encrypt that data and you just run it over the encrypted data. That's it. No, like ZK can do that. MPC does it in a very quirky way, so I don't think that's the right technology to do it. But you're right. You still need to mix all of this, right? Like ZK is the proven technology. Like even with FHE, you'd want to do like ZK over FHE when that's feasible. Even MPC, like tomorrow I'm giving a talk at our encryption day event, and I'm going to talk about MPC work that we did to basically split the decryption key so that, you know, yes, there's FHE encryption, data is encrypted, but sometimes you need to decrypt data, who holds the key. So you don't want one person, you want the network to kind of split it. So all of these come together, but when it comes to computing over encrypted data, and really, really kind of like the core privacy aspect of not seeing data that you operate on, FHE is like the way to go.
Yeah, and I think another misconception here is that these are mutually exclusive. And so you can either pick ZK or you can pick FHE, but that's not the case. You can combine these two technologies for really, really powerful use cases. And I'm sure you have ideas and your imagination runs wild here, but you already kind of mentioned them. You can compute over encrypted data and then do ZK on top of that, or I have a feeling you can do ZK underneath and then you can run FHE on top. And so there's all kinds of fun like use cases that you can use multiple different privacy preserving technologies and get blockchain to a place where Web 2 and traditional finance is right now, because everything is centralized and safeguarded. We can actually do that on chain in a programmatic way.
Right. And I'll let you in on a little secret. I think every researcher operating in the space knew that there will be this kind of like combination, and we will get to this end game of combination. I feel that, I don't know if it's the market, the ecosystem, the VCs, whatever you want to call it, like they created these like fake camps, but like people in the inside always knew that these are like fake camps.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think, you know, we call this the us versus them dynamic. And that tends to get a lot of clicks because you end up with lovers and haters and things that are very contentious. But in reality, when you get down to it, we want to solve all the problems in the best way that's possible, and that is going to take multiple different types of technologies to solve these complex problems. And so I think kind of moving into specifically at Fhenix, like what you guys are specializing in, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you guys use FHE. What is your timeline or roadmap or vision for generating more adoption of FHE technology?
So, I mean, what we focus on FHE is specifically confidential smart contracts. And specifically right now, like EVM based. So like We allow you to write Solidity as is. We give you like a library in Solidity and we give you like encrypted types, and then you can basically magically compute over like encrypted data. So I don't know. Let's say you have like an auction contract, right? I'm guessing like sealed bid, like second price auctions, they are way more efficient than public auctions. Because if like in a public auction, I can see what you bid and I can kind of front run you and kind of try to kind of like snag a better deal at the end of the day. But if everyone's bids are private and you do like something called a second price auction, then it's like mathematically proven that you get like the best results for everyone. So that's like an example of a smart contract that will only work, let's say on Ethereum, on L2, on Arbitrum, on us, on Optimism, but it will only work if people can encrypt their bids. And that's what we focus on, basically allowing developers and users to decide what data inside of their smart contract executions and business logic they want to keep private. And they can selectively share it or not, and there are many use cases for that. I think you had another question that
I essentially like how are you using that to generate more adoption, right? And confidential smart contracts, like how are you going and preaching this to the world and those who want confidential smart contracts coming to the technology and you giving it to them?
Right, so we do it two ways. We do the usual approach of like, getting developers, hackathons. We do a lot of like brainstorming sessions and like internal hackathons and kind of like build, like eat our own dog food and like building products that we think are interesting. And we don't necessarily do that to, build like, we're not a dev shop, but we do that to kind of like show people like what you can do with FHE and with confidential smart contracts that you cannot do otherwise. So that's strategy number one. Strategy number two, and I think that's a bit more complicated. But maybe I'll pick one example. So like, we think and we have good data to show this, that like there's a lot of interest around like confidential ERC20s. I'm not talking about like tornado cache mixing. I'm literally talking about like I send ETH, I send USDC, I send ARB or WBTC or CBBTC and all that, and I don't want people to see my balance and how much I have. Maybe they can see my identity, whatever. But like at least that there's like a lot of market, especially with stable coins, because people use stable coins a lot for payments. Like we've had like companies that are in crypto saying, look, we pay our employees in stablecoin. We don't want our employees to see each other's like salary. It doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of that. So we think that's like a core building block that if we build, and then we bring other teams that kind of build like other money Legos and DeFi building blocks, but that tie into this like confidential DeFi, confidential ERC20 aspect, then we're going to see a lot of growth and enable a lot of like use cases that we've never seen possible before.
Right, and we need that confidentiality primitive. And FHE is the technology that allows us to do the computation on top of private transactions. And so, like we have a company that pays people confidentially on chain. Then we can do things like maybe there's some sort of taxes or payroll expenses or things, right? And so maybe as simple an arithmetic as 10% needs to go to paying taxes, right? The 10%, you don't need to have any information about who or what of that underlying transaction. We can take out taxes. We can put some in a 401k and an IRA. We can split up the different token amounts and break these things up into whatever and allocate these things across the different places where they need to go without having the confidentiality broken.
Right.
And I think this is a particular use case that, for blockchain applications to look a lot more like they do in real life in Web 2 and traditional companies, we need to add these privacy preserving elements on chain.
Imagine if the world's GDP moved on chain. Guys, say GM to SafeNet. The newest protocol by Safe isn't a blockchain and it's not a new layer 2. It's a transaction processing network built to send money anywhere and swap anything on thousands of layer 2s from a single universal balance in sub 500 milliseconds. It's fast, it's smooth, and it's simple. and it's built with safe multi-sig level security in mind. SafeNet unlocks smart accounts across multiple chains, allowing users to supercharge security, scalability, and speed. So get started today at net.safe.global and remember to follow @safe on X. Welcome aboard on our journey into the singularity. This is the endgame roadmap for Frax and Fraxtal, the new L2 out of the Frax ecosystem that is totally based on fractal scaling. Fraxtal is a modular L2 blockchain built by Frax with modular and fractal scaling in mind. Fractal scaling is based on the Mandelbrot set of fractal images, and it explains how L2s become L3s and the entire app chain lifecycle goes through its evolution. The Frax ecosystem is made of some of the top builders in the space and has stemmed from its OG days of the Frax stablecoin. It is now in the LST space, the LRT space, and this Fraxtal L2 joins the existing suite of Frax products, including Frax Swap and Frax Lend. You can see Frax Ferry, the bridge to go from any chain, Arbitrum, Optimism, or mainnet into the Fraxtal mainnet. Bridge your tokens and bring your Frax assets into the Fraxtal ecosystem. Join today to get the best out of Fraxtal. You are still early. Join today. Take part in our expedition into the singularity.
I 100% agree, but you would also be surprised, like big financial institutions, they see that. So we had, this was revealed a few days ago, so I can now talk about it. We had JP Morgan come to us and say, like, we're looking into real world assets, right? Yeah. Like we want to tokenize like private equity funds. We basically want to tokenize everything. Mm-hmm. We believe in Ethereum. We want to do it like on Ethereum. And you see that mantra. But they said, like, look, our clients, they're not going to buy shares in like a real world asset fund and that if people can see like how much ownership they have and how much they want. Like they literally told us like that they need this now. This is not like, for people to avoid taxes. This is literally like like a Fortune 100 company saying we need this in order to bring this product to market.
One of the funny things I've seen around this conference is there are more events, side events with bank co-hosting and sponsoring than I've ever seen at any crypto conference before. And I was actually in the elevator with K Plus, and it's like the actual Thai regional bank here, funded by the royal family of Thailand. And I'm in the elevator and I asked, like, why are you co-hosting this blockchain event? Are you using blockchain in your bank? And she said, no, we're not really using blockchain in our bank, but we have this asset tokenization arm of the bank. And quick sidebar, it's like how much of a 180-degree flip from JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, from BlackRock, Larry Fink, Bitcoin is for money laundering, to we want to tokenize the world.
It's insane.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, I guess.
They needed to pack their bags at the bottom before they started showing.
No, I don't know. Well, maybe. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so I'm not sure I buy into that. But I think people change their opinions, and I think when you're a public figure, you're a CEO of like these public companies. You go up on shows and you have strong opinions, weakly held. Like you say very, very strong things, and then you get more information and you learn that it was not incorrect and. You elegantly move to the other side.
Yeah.
But I think that's good for us.
I think so too, man. It's been fascinating to watch. I think early on, it was very easy to just hate on blockchain, hate on Bitcoin because it was the status quo.
Right.
And now the incentives switch.
Yeah.
Now the incentive is banks are starting to buy crypto and tokenize assets. El Salvador governments are starting to buy Bitcoin and tokenize. And now the incentives are such that it's in their best interest to talk about Bitcoin in a positive light because the train is leaving the station and they want to be on board.
So I think that's actually the critical point. So I remember like 2015, I talked to like banks and regulators and all that, and there was this kind of like permission, private blockchain, let's do that.
Yes.
And the talk then was like, let's reduce costs. And it wasn't clear how much cost you reduce, if you reduce costs, but reducing costs is never as interesting as like new revenue like streams, right?
Yes.
And now they get new revenue streams, right? Like you have custody banks or like they see Fireblocks and Coinbase are like, I want to be in the custody game because that's additional revenue. And JP Morgan and they say like, okay, I can get revenue from investors and take fees by basically tokenizing everything. So I think that's the other end of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they see that they're leaving money on the table because crypto has now grown to an economy that is at scale to a certain extent. It's going to continue to grow, but it's big enough where they can't help but take notice. And they see that their services are prime to enter this market, and now this market is big enough for them to pay it attention.
Right.
One thing we haven't talked about is Arbitrum. We haven't talked, and we're here at Arbitrum, Arbiverse, right? So let's take kind of the last few minutes to talk about Arbitrum. I'm mostly curious, why did you choose to build on the Arbitrum stack?
So just so that you understand how an unnatural decision it was initially, and that is to Arbitrum's credit of like the amazing stack that they've built. Like when we started, we built like this basically a Cosmos-based network, and we have a lot of experience in Cosmos, like validators, all that. It was way easier, it was faster, it was working, and we dumped all of it to basically build on the Arbitrum stack. Why did we build on the Arbitrum stack? Because building something like an FHE chain, rollup, whatever you want to call it, as a layer 1, it does not make sense. Because FHE is still expensive. You need probably specialized hardware. Like you're gonna need sequencers, you're gonna maybe have a lot of validators over time, but sequencers, those that are actually ordering the blocks and actually executing the FHE computations, like you really want to work in a roll-up model where you can kind of move as fast as like you can without waiting for like other validators to sign off on consensus and all that. And then once you understand that FHE rollup is the only thing that makes sense. And then the question is, okay, Arbitrum, Optimism, both are great. And I'd say Arbitrum won in two ways. I mean, we love both teams and stacks and all that, but like what Arbitrum gave us that no one else gave us is a way to do fraud proofs over FHE. So FHE is not Solidity. Under the hood, it's like Rust code, very optimized, it's mathematical operations. How do you do fraud proofs on that on chain? And Arbitrum, with their offering, like they allow you to basically compile anything to WebAssembly and do that. And they actually helped us. Like they not only gave us the solution, like they worked with us closely to kind of figuring out the nuts and bolts and how to get it to work. And from a security perspective, that literally was the only way to move forward. And then B is they're amazing people. Like they're extremely smart. They care about FHE. They like FHE. They see the vision as we see it. Like working with them together side by side. And I think you'll see us working a lot more with them together, especially with the Off-Chain Labs team. Because like there's such a great alignment, like many of them are researchers as well, so they really align with the vision.
Yeah, absolutely. To Arbitrum's credit, they've also been able to amass this this community and hub of liquidity and users that really is unparalleled in the rest of the space. And so we're going to have Plume in here in a little bit, and they're doing some great work with RWAs. Also, GMX and Aave and all these DeFi powerhouses are on Arbitrum, and it is the home of DeFi. I don't think it's wild to say that. And so when we're thinking about FHE, this needs to come from somewhere, right? And so I'm curious about the forward compatibility of FHE and Fhenix on top of these existing DeFi applications. And so is it possible to run the confidentiality on top of things like Aave and GMX and rather than rewrite smart contracts from scratch using confidentiality, can we put confidentiality on top?
To an extent. So I'll explain. First of all, in our L2, we're gonna support like both modes, and we're building like really crisp UIs to make it easier for users, because we do want we want to connect like to the entire Arbitrum ecosystem and other ecosystem, and to tap into like other liquidity sources and so forth. And also it makes sense for like projects to come and just like fork what they've done so far, and maybe later on we can work with them and they can add like other features with confidentiality. But it can start from the edges. It doesn't have to be like rewrite everything or copy everything. So that's like angle number one. Angle number two is like, and that is something that we are working very closely with Arbitrum, and this is completely based on the Arbitrum stack. like, quite frankly, I don't think that Phenix endgame is our L2. I do think that the L2 is like extremely important both for us and the Arbitrum ecosystem today. But the end game is like everyone's gonna want to build their own rollup or chain.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna build their apps like wherever they are. Asking people to rewrite everything that they do and come to us and changes, like it doesn't make sense.
Right.
So we're building this as a co-processor. You can think about it like a lightweight rollup that basically taps into the same security of the chain, whether it's the L1, whether it's Arbitrum directly, whether it's like Orbi chains. It will tap into the same security level and model of those chains and will settle to them, right? But inside it would run a sequencer and that, and basically run like a mini FHE Arbitrum stack. And I think that's like the end game. That's how like developers, like, you know, they will have their apps and then they can just tap into the co-processor and say, hey, maybe I do this next feature by tapping into the co-processor. I already have it on Arbitrum or Ethereum L1. I'll just tap into it for one thing.
Right.
And then maybe over time I'll grow and expand my product. And that's really how we think this gets adopted.
Yeah, and ultimately this is going to be helpful for the Web3 rollups and applications that are already live. They're going to be able to tap into this coprocessor. But I think it's even more important for the Web2 projects that have not come on chain yet.
Correct.
They're looking for the most lightweight modular solution to enable confidentiality, privacy into their solution. And the coprocessor, I think, is going to be a phenomenal way for them to get involved. And so if you were to say, you know, one word one last piece here to those who are watching who, you know, we have a lot of application builders, a lot of people who are working at rollups and working at applications. And you know, if you were to kind of let them know why they should come use the Phenix coprocessor, this is your chance to do so.
Thanks. I mean, I think FHE, and this is getting to be accepted knowledge at this point. I think it's like the next FHE. And I think 5 years from now, like blockchains in general, they're gonna change. You're gonna have 3 steps: encrypt on the user side, the encrypted transactions, ordering and computation is done over encrypted data. I mean, Flashbots are doing it with T's right now. On the ordering side, like Phenix and other, will do it with FHE or other technologies on the smart contract level side. And then eventually when you need to reveal something, then you decrypt. And like if you're a developer in the space, then I think it just makes sense that if you buy into this vision, that this is like the computing paradigm of blockchains 5 years from now, it makes sense for you to kind of like be ahead of the curve. Like it's kind of like being early to ZK and then being able to kind of like set the stage and be the first one to build the cool building blocks and basically take like most of the pie.
Awesome. Guy, thank you so much, man. This has been an absolute pleasure. Learned a lot as well.
Thank you for having me. I mean, this was awesome.